I'll call the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting order. Everyone in this room? Here. Sullivan? Here. Steve Luchek? Here. Here. Michael. Next year, you want to say here? We have all members present. Almost got it.
I know. Wait, my
Look at, won't have to be paid. This item on the agenda is a public hearing. First public hearing is REGA 2301.
Notice is hereby given that the following public hearings will be held on Tuesday, May 23rd, 7 p.m. Community Room 2, Town Hall Annex 134, Groton, virtually used platform including the following zoning regulation GA 23-3, unit storage and parking text amendments. Amend sections 2.1, definitions 5.1, 8.2, multi-unit dwellings 5.1, 8H9, multi-unit dwellings conversion 8.2-4, table of parking requirements 8.2-4, and 6 electric vehicle off-street parking requirements 8.2-17, bicycle parking 8.2-17, internal facilities. Planning and Zoning Commission. Zoom meeting link will be posted to the town website. These calendar applications are on file and available for public inspection during normal business hours. Planning Department 134, Groton Road, Connecticut 06340. The office Groton Town Court 45 Fort Hill Road. Groton. Proposed draft zoning regulations can also be viewed. Persons having interest in the application are invited to attend, comment, provide testimony, and it is 12th day of May 2023 at Groton.
Business or staff. Public.
Yeah. So this is the parking and storage text amendment. And it comes from the background of in 2022, Connecticut Public Act 2022-25 was signed. That was dubbed the Clean Air Act. This set of laws carried with it new definitions and standards around alternative fuel vehicles and charging stations. So the Planning and Zoning Commission sought to align Groton's regulations to this new law. This resulted in new definitions and edits to the electric vehicle off-street parking requirements section of the zoning. Additionally, in alignment with the POCD values of promoting sustainable multimodal development, this text amendment also addresses storage requirements for recreational equipment. And finally, to address inconsistencies in the parking table, an edit was made to the parking calculation of fixed seats in the place of the the required referrals were made and determined that this regulation is likely to have a negative intermunicipal impact. The Knowing zoning district noted that this text did not apply to the properties of Knowing. He found that this text is consistent with the Coastal Management Act, and if the commission decides to adopt these regulations, we would recommend it. And there is a
Anyone in the public wish? Open up into the discussion.
These are old things that we discussed.
That's correct.
And, right, and I agree that the due diligence was well done. We're ready.
Nothing.
Next time.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
It's not a decision.
Okay. I'll make a motion that. Make a motion. to Close the hearing for regular 23. Moved in a second. Any questions? Understand the motion? None, and we'll vote on the motion to close the public hearing. Over the multiple units. Motion carried. Next, public hearing is on spec 379 Captain's Elm Street.
Notice is hereby given. The following public hearing will be held Tuesday, May 23rd, 2023 at 7 p.m. in Town Hall Annex, Groton, virtually in platform to the following. Special permit 379, 15 Elm Street, 26191 feet, 236 well zone. Was to modify the conditions of approval for special permit 2.8. Advisory requirement. Hotel, owner occupied. Review is per section 9.4-8, zoning regulations, Captain's Mansion LLC. Blue Region Lake will be posted to the town's website, meeting calendar. Applications are filed, available for public inspection during hours, planning department. Zero 6340 and office. Groton Town Clerk and 5 Fort Hill Road. Codes, drafts, and main regulations can also be viewed on the town website. First applications. Testimony and day of May 2023.
Their presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name, for the record, is John Casey. I'm a partner with the law firm of Robinson & Polk. Also a resident at Chiefwood Avenue, not far from the location of this property. Tonight, we're here to ask for modification to an addition to the special permit that allows this hotel to exist. Change it from owner occupied to have on call system. With me tonight are Walker Glazer, who's the managing member of Captain's Mansion LLC. He's also the manager of the LLC that owns Steamboat Inn and also has an ownership interest in other properties downtown. Relatively new to the area, but a big supporter of this thing. You'll hear from him as part of our communication. Also with us is the general manager for Sun's Properties, who has a long history at Steamboat Inn, and we'll talk about the system that's proposed. So just to orient everyone, this is a typical site plan type thing. I don't have anything to show, but it's Captain's Mansion, 15 Elm Street. It's in the RS12 zoning district between Burroughs and Library Street. right across from the Noank Library. Besides the library, surrounding it are mostly single-family residences. One other non-residential use down the street at the Union Baptist Church. Just for the record, it's in our application, but we're obviously not in the coastal management zone, so those issues are present, and there's no inland wetlands on the property. This property used to be, when I first moved here, it was an apartment building. I was always very curious about it as I went by it day to day. But in 1998, it was allowed to convert from one non-conforming use, the apartment building, to another non-conforming use, the hotel motel. It was there was 8 apartment buildings, sorry, 8 apartment units. They were allowed to have 8 hotel rooms. Keep the number the same, and the condition of that special permit was that the hotel motel should be owner occupied. I've been through the records, that old file. Not really clear why that was proposed by the applicant. It seemed to have come from the applicant at that time, who was a different owner. Might have even been 2 owners before the most previous owner, before Sonny acquired an interest in it. But it's not really clear, what their thought was. I assume they wanted to live there. It was their ideal, but obviously that never came to fruition. Again, that was in 1998, and it wasn't until 2015, after the prior owner, Brian Gates, of his LLC, a site plan was actually approved to let the property become a hotel motel. So site plan was approved in 2015. Actually, if I remember correctly, the special permit hadn't even been recorded. 1998 all the way up to 2015. No one really moved forward with the hotel idea for years. But the site plan was approved, and there was this condition there that said any amenities provided on site are for the hotel motel guests only. That year was all for guests. In May of 2016, after renovations, what was then called Spicer Mansion opened as a hotel, and almost immediately thereafter, the zoning violation started. And I think you were provided from the staff with some of the highlights or lowlights of the prior owner's use of the property and this use of the property. And on top of that, there was obviously financial issues, which led to the property going into foreclosure, 2 sales. Second sale, property finally ended up with Sonny, who wanted to buy it in the first sale, but outbid the first go round, but that bid never came. So Sonny took control November 30th of last year. Then, and he'll tell you a little bit more, he worked intensively to bring the property up to code, because not only were there zoning violations, but there were some safety things that needed to be improved upon. Fire code issues, the alarm, the fire department. So we're here tonight to make a very specific request. We're asking that the approval, the condition and special permit number 228 from 1998, hotel motel, the owner occupied be replaced with, and I'll read what we put. The hotel motel shall 1, maintain an on-call telephone system. Guests or town officials, including emergency responders, to immediately speak with a representative of the owner 24 hours per day. And 2, have the representative of the owner on the property available, and present on the property within 60 minutes of receiving a call from the guest or town official. And we'll clarify a little more. I just want to make sure that you understand. Number 2 doesn't mean that no one will ever be on the property. But there will be times, middle of the night, unexpected to be on the property, that someone will be available. Sunny and Rosemary will explain how this system works at Steamboat. And works very successfully for them there. Aside from that, there are no other modifications that are proposed as part of this application. We don't propose to change it from an 8-room hotel motel, as was approved. No changes to the exterior of the building or exterior site conditions. And it's really the purpose of this request to allow the new owner to reopen the hotel, more flexibility, how the operations will be managed in terms of staff and on-site staff, and consistent with the operation you go in. Identical system used for years without problem. That breath and all that, I'll turn it over to Sunny, who can you and his history here in this way, operations at the end and post operations.
Well, as you did. Walter Glazer, Sonny Glazer. I'm the present owner, the new owner of Captain's Mansion, the owner of Steamboat Inn. That's okay.
We need an address.
15 Elm Street is the one, and 73 Steamboat Wharf is Steamboat Inn.
This will be your
Your
address.
address. Oh, my address, 51 Steamboat Wharf. Okay.
Thank you.
So, I've been here in Mystic a number of years. I used to come here as a kid boating up here every summer and whatnot. And when I found myself in early retirement 5 years ago, I found myself here just wanting to save the history of Mystic. I've been buying land downtown Mystic, different buildings, the Steamboat Inn being one of them, several buildings down there, looking to keep them in good repair, keep tenants, neighbors happy, looking for the quiet Mystic that I kind of know. The Steamboat Inn, right now, we have 11 rooms there. I know we're zoned slightly different downtown, but the Steamboat Inn does have, it's actually part of when the Steamboat Wharf condos were built. There's 17 condos, I believe, and the 18th was the Steamboat Inn. Also, our building, which is adjacent, actually connected to the Steamboat Inn, has 50 apartments and 20 storefronts. So immediately in the downtown area, we have lots of neighbors and guests and tenants that are our own. So the way we run the Steamboat Inn is a quiet location, quiet adult location. Right now it's Steamboat Inn. At 8 o'clock, there's actually signage out on the dock. 8 o'clock at night is a quiet time. We do take it seriously. If we do have guests that have been a problem, we will come talk to them immediately. And if it becomes a problem, they actually get blacklisted and they're not allowed back. Steamboat Inn's been doing this for 30 years. It works very well. It's the same system we are proposing for up the street. Let's see. You mentioned we're trying to bring everything up to code right now. We don't want to do anything we're not zoned for or anything illegal. We've been working with the fire department and the fire marshal, bringing everything up to code. We're actually now just about to turn on the new fire system that goes directly to the fire department, which I think it was supposed to be that, but never was. But we're just about to turn that on. We're not open yet anyway. We have been renovating the past couple of months. We are getting close. Furniture is showing up the past couple of days. We're about ready to move forward into the next history of Mystic and hopefully the Captain's Mansion being good neighbors. We'll see a bunch of my neighbors that are here as Our restaurant that is there is not open to the public. It's at this point, it's strictly just gonna be breakfast for our guests. Same with the speakeasy. It's not even legal down there. We're not doing anything downstairs. What else did I miss anyway?
I have a question.
Yeah, I can open up for questions then. Okay, okay. I guess then, you wanna speak, I can let Rosemary come up, the manager of the Steamboat Inn, who's been doing this there for 17 years. And she can talk about the system and how we have it set up at Steamboat Inn. If we meet her as well. So Rosemary Robinson, thank you.
Hi, I'm Rosemary Robinson. I live at 6 August Road in Ledger. I actually grew up here. And I have found my home working at Steamboat Inn 17 years ago. Started and it's a really nice place. I've worked my way up and as Sunny said, he now owns several properties downtown. Of course, and I have quite a few residents. And we run all our properties pretty much the same way. Our night process is very, very simple. We have somebody who comes in very early in the morning. Our maintenance person, I believe, arrives off 4 to 6 in the morning. And our breakfast person arrives right around 7. First front desk person arrives around 8. We have someone on the property until at least 9 o'clock every night, at which point the phones are turned over to night mode, which automatically goes to an answering service. The last person leave, when they do that, they are then required to call our number to make sure it's actually connected, so that there is no, oops, I missed the button. They require to call the number to make sure it does actually connect to the answering service. Before they even do that, a list of all the guest names goes to the person who's first on the list for on-call. It also goes to the answering service. Because it's also for the guest safety as well. In case something happens in an emergency at home, they call the emergency from home because the dog got loose or something, whatever, they know what room to call. Occasionally, someone does make a little noise and it bothers usually the guest next door. And then immediately someone will call them and talk to them if there's a problem. I believe all of us live probably within 20 minutes, if not less. We do actually have someone who actually lives in downtown Mystic as well, so our response time.
2 of us in town,
Yeah. You're right there too.
right there.
Yeah. You're first on the list. Like I said, I've been there 17 years. I worked for the previous owners. We've never had any complaints from any of our neighbors about the inn. We've had complaints from guests about neighbors, especially being as they're down right in the heart of things, right in the heart of everything. People like to hang out on the dock. Again, we're down there. I understand, I live in a neighborhood. My time is very important. And I understand about keeping quiet for the neighbors. I have 4 very noisy clients. Okay, but they do not go out and I guarantee you, we won't let our guests go. Our goal, and has been since you acquired this property, it's a beautiful property. It really needs to be enjoyed. And we want to share it with you. And we don't want it to be, we want you to be proud. So we don't want to do anything that's going to upset a neighbor, obviously. We want to be in business and we want you guys to be able to drive by and say, look at that place, it's great. And, we don't want to bother anybody. Any concerns you've already had so far, I believe, anytime anybody said anything, it got addressed right away. And that's pretty much how you run everything. We love to give our properties to where we're trying to show. And it's the same with our. Sorry. I'm trying to. Can I?
If you're
We want everyone to be happy.
We want everybody to- You know, and if, we've always had an open door thing, so if anybody had a question or a concern, we're there, we want to do things. the right way. We want to have a, we Penny insisted on renaming it to give it a new slate, because we don't want to worry about what was. That's over, that's done, we're not going there. We're new people and we want to do things. Which is why we're here asking for help. Thank you.
Just, I don't know if either one is just, our request is that someone be able to show up in 60 minutes, and that's, and I know we have the zoning enforcement officer's memo saying that he's okay with that, that's an enforceable, something he can enforce. It's an objective standard, but if you could just, it's not, like I said, that no staff is gonna be on site. So Rosemary talked a little bit about how to do that, steamboat in, and maybe just how, there's gonna be people there for most of the day. So if you could just put that on the record and explain how the place will be staffed, and there will be people there that run the place.
Right. Well, like Rosemary said, how it starts early in the morning with our maintenance guy coming by to check up on things, make sure everything's working, heating, air conditioning, to somebody who's setting up breakfast, take care of the guests. We always have somebody all day long, always there. There's always people on our property. That's the same way we would like to do Captain's Mansion as well. Then from there, after hours, that it does go to this phone support. And there's a bunch of us all within minutes of the hotel. So if there's any real problems, we could be there. I'll give you, for instance, we all know about the Mystic fire that we just had across the way. Well, that was after hours for our staff, or somewhere right around there. And of course, the guests right across the river started calling right away. There's a fire. Rosemary was downtown within a few minutes, probably quicker than she should be, but she was there. As well as one of my other junior managers was there within 5 minutes to talk to guests and help them out and just kind of comfort them as well. And that's really the way we want to do Captain's Mansion as well.
So again, John Casey for the record. I just wanted to touch on a few housekeeping matters. This is all in our application, but just to be clear on the record, we are asking for a few waivers. Requirements require a location map, a plan, and floor plans. We asked for waivers of these because we're not changing, the site plan. We provided a map from GIS to show where this property is, so you have context. We would request that you grant those waivers, that information is make a decision on it. And again, the floor plans are the same. I run through the special permit criteria in our application as well. Really want to say things, just repeat things. They are in the record, but in terms of criteria regarding location, buildings, neighborhood compatibility, parking, best streets, most of these I think were considered and determined to be compatible when the site special permit was issued in 1998, and we're not really changing any of those, and there's no impact on the hotel's place in the neighborhood and the use inside the hotel. We're really focused on one element of the management of the building. So it doesn't change the use. So I would say that the special permit criteria, we're not impacting those in any great degree. And to the extent we are changing, that condition, we feel that we still comply with the special And lastly, regarding compliance with the plan of conservation and development, there's different considerations regarding the use of historic buildings, increased focus on economic development efforts, small businesses. This helps promote small business in the town. Promoting Mystic as a tourism destination goes directly would impact that and supports that goal of the plan of conservation. As I said, the use of the property is not changing. It's going to be a hotel. This one sort of operational management element that we ask to modify to provide that. Still, if the intent of having an owner there was to be able to oversee and be there for the guests and be there for the neighbors, the change is compliant. There'll be a way to get in touch with the owner, have someone there on site when it'll still take reasonable given the recent history with the building and the use that people are a little on edge about, what all the bad things that can happen. But I would say that the decision to change this to a hotel was a good decision, and that shouldn't be questioned. That's not what we're here for. The issue really is, can you maintain that use? Can you manage the use without having an owner on site 24 hours a day? The answer is yes. We provide proper condition like the one we're asking for, and that the zoning official said is something force. The sins of the father and the sins of the passion visited upon the new owner. I think it's appropriate to give Sonny and his team a chance. Run it as it was always intended to be run. I think by this commission, it's intended to be run, maybe not by the prior owner. And so, given that, we would ask you to approve the application. We take any questions now or after the public speak.
Take on that.
I have a couple of things to add. I'm not going to read the paper presentation here. I'm just going to add a few pieces of information. So first of all, the mailings that were provided for the hearings. This application was given a special permit number, but it is essentially to modify special permit number 228, one that was granted in 1998, converting the apartment building to a owner-occupied hotel motel. The words hotel motel were used at the time because under those existing zoning regulations, there were no regulations. The property owner at the time intended to run it as a bed and breakfast, and thus they planned to live there. And again, as was stated, the special permit was not even filed until when the just past previous owner, Mr. Gates, purchased the property. The site plan was approved with the condition that all the amenities were only, and as noted, all of the conditions were complete. There were a number of enforcement actions. They have a number of enforcement letters that went out. Ultimately, the matter ended up in court, and the conditions were upheld by contempt order. As noted, the code enforcement officer did review this proposal and confirmed that he could do random checks of this 24-hour period and confirmed that basically be there within. And then just with regards to the waiver request, it's not exactly a waiver. You don't have to require a this is minimal modification, which in my opinion, it is just modifying the condition. So with that, the permit number 228 is in effect. So even if you choose not to grant this modification, this can be run for
Define the definition. Like, what it means.
So there's no indication in any of the files as to what that means, but we have interpreted it to be an owner of the property needs to live on site. In a case where it is a group of owners, one of them must live on site. It could be rotating, I suppose. But one of the property.
Does that mean always? Somebody 24 hours a day? Or
No,
just there?
no,
Less-
that is their primary residence.
Yes.
They can go on vacation. Yes.
No, but I mean, in a park somewhere, until go get food.
Exactly. It does not mean they have to stay there 24 hours a day.
So even in the current
Correct.
regulation, it could be the less than person.
As long as it was the residents.
Resident.
Or a-
I just want to make sure. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, so I'll open it up to anybody in the public. Yes. If you want it, you stand up to the podium and state your name.
I'm Lindsay Harlan and I live directly
Or
behind.
you want to speak into the mic?
Oh, Lindsay
We have
Harlan.
to record.
Am I good to go?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Lindsay Harlan and I live directly behind. The hotel. And I've been really happy to see the changes that have been made in the last couple of months. They've made me certainly my property's interface with that much better through some of the amendments they've made. So I feel very encouraged. I do have a couple of points to make. One's just a point of clarification. Which is to say this number that the number that someone would call if there were a problem. Who has access to that number? Will neighbors have access to the number?
We'll have to answer it on the record
Oh,
when it's our turn. But we'll-
so that would be my concern because, I think for the last few years, the neighbors have been kind of in charge of getting in touch with the police, calling the town hall, trying to figure out what to do about the raucous parties and function weddings, and giant weddings and derby parties and all that kind of thing. But not only that, but on the weekends, a lot of times they go down to town and then they come back. And the previous owners created a large patio in there. And so people would stay drinking 11, 12 o'clock at night there or on the back porches or in the porch in front. Sometimes drinking songs. Or I was saying that I had a recording of My Sharona that went on forever. Boom, boom, boom. But anyway, it was lots of people. And these are not teenagers. These are people that are probably in their 30s and 40s who can afford a nice meal out and they come back and their spirits are lifted and they become a little boisterous and sometimes a little silly, but it can be very loud. And with the previous owner, the music is sometimes so loud that my 15 people would vibrate the music of the speaker. And it can be heard over across Route 1, which is, I have a friend who's a realtor in Missouri. I don't have the feeling at all that that's what we're in store for. And I don't mind whether or not the place is owner occupied. I've been to many B&Bs that work on a system of that at about 11 o'clock at night. I am concerned about that window of 9 to 11. That's when most of the mischief. So I have that. I want to put that out there that I would be inclined to, and I have a feeling having talked to some other people, would feel more comfortable, especially on the weekends, if they were there a little bit. But as to who sleeps in the bed there, that doesn't. I just care about supervision and access. I don't want to be in the position anymore of feeling like I have to call the police. And I actually never did that. Other people did that for me, it seems, and for others. But I did numerous occasions. They didn't always know. So those are the two major things that I wanted to say. And then I did have one final question. I know that you can serve only people who stay at the hotel, but is there a plan to have weddings there or regular functions? And if so, are they going to be outside, and where there'll be rules about those? I really like, by the way, the idea that you have a quiet time. I know in the inn, there isn't a big, that I know of, gathering place where people get together to be loud. But in our case, it's right outside, and then all the neighbors. So that's hopefully helpful information to you. I'm excited about this. I have enjoyed meeting the new owner
Anyone else? Yes. Yes. Want to state your name and address?
Yes. My name is Peter Solari. I'll spell that. I do that a lot in life. SCILLI. And my wife Miriam in the corner, and I live at 19 Burroughs Street, where we are butters. I have notes prepared here. But before I get to them, I have no reason to
You're going
think.
to address us.
All right. With reference to the gentleman behind me, who purports to be Sonny Glazer, as to him and Attorney Casey. I don't know Attorney Casey, I don't particularly know Mr. Glazer. I know Attorney Casey's reputation. I'm a retired attorney myself. This gentleman has a sterling reputation. Not going to be a surprise to any of you, I'm sure. And I have no reason to doubt his intentions and his acumen is obvious. As to Mr. Glazer, I don't know, but I would agree with anyone else who has spoken and has made reference to the fact that he is, it sounds like damning by faint praise, but he's way better than the guy that preceded him. I have no doubt about that. He's obviously a competent businessman.
Low bar.
I'm just saying.
Right. So I don't want to put it that way. But, you know, I have no reason to doubt the man's integrity, his expertise, or any of that kind. What concerns me is the larger issue. I would ask Mr. Chairman, through the chairman, I would ask Mr. Casey at the appropriate time to indicate whether he agrees with me that the language that is proposed, whether or not that language would, in effect, as we say, run with the land. It's obvious to me that it does. It's going to be part of the bundle of rights that are associated with this property going forward. That is to say, Mr. Glazer can convey them at any time. And that would include, obviously, the substitute language. And I'll get to why that bothers me. I don't know, I think it's probably obvious. I see that, and I don't know how to pronounce the chairman's name, so I'm not going to take a guess, but I see that he was, thank you, that he was on the board in 1998. So I hope he doesn't stop just shaking his head and say, now you're wrong about that, Solari. But I'm going to take a guess anyhow. I'm a retired defense attorney, and I've made a gamble or two in my time, in my professional capacity. Anyhow, once upon a time, believe me, it's going to be much shorter than it sounds for a second here. Once upon a time, Spicer built a mansion, right, at 15 Elm Street, and he lived in it for some period of time. Presumably slept in it, ate in it, did whatever moguls in those days do at their home, but it was his home. And at some later time, it became somebody else's home. Somebody else resided there. It was an apartment house. And many, many people lived in that apartment house. I imagine it rotated through over the years. But that was their home. They resided there. Their bundle of rights having to do with the quiet enjoyment of their premises took place in that place. 1998, here's where I might start to skate on thin ice. In 1998, it would appear from looking at the records I was able to dig up or were provided to me by staff, relative to special permit 228, that someone wanted to propose a B&B. And Kevin Quinn, your Kevin Quinn, the one who I knew was a building inspector, but that Kevin Quinn, queried the town attorney at the time, Jim Brennan, and asked him, well, my question is that by changing from a long-term rental to a daily or weekly rental and offering food, is that an expansion or an intensification of non-conforming use? And let me pause for a second. I assume because it's in the file that I got it from, a photocopy from, that you have that material. But if for whatever reason it's more convenient, if you free have my copy, I would offer it as an exhibit. It's up to you guys entirely. You need this. Okay. So anyhow, that's dated August 14th, 1998. Dear Jim, and then that salient paragraph. He hears back on August 21st, again from your file, to the file of the town records. Dear Kevin, I definitely feel that changing the property of 15 Elm Street from an apartment building to a bed and breakfast would be an illegal intensification and expansion of a non-conforming use. And I advise that they apply for the only apply for variance. You know the history, they didn't do that. And I don't know, I remember Jim Brennan a little bit. I'm that old. He would be in his like mid-60s, and he practiced a lot of law by then, and I certainly can't read his mind or claim to know why he gave the opinion that he gave, and maybe Mr. Hudichek knows better than I do, but I would suspect what he said was what went through my mind, which is, wait a minute, something's off about this. What is off? What's different? Here's what's different. It's always been a residence. Always. When L.U. Spicer built it was a house, a home people lived in. When it becomes an apartment house, more people are living there. But when it becomes, or is proposed to become a B&B, I suspect any attorney says, hey, this, wait a minute, what's different about this? Well, what's different about it is, yeah, they're still a resident, but now the resident's going to run a business that is resident. Still a resident, run a business that is resident. And I think that is I'm now putting my strength, whatever it is, myself to Jim Brennan's mind in 1998 and saying that I agree with that it is, and that what should have been done, and that's, I'm not here to castigate anyone, just to point out how this thing got to where it is and why it shouldn't go the rest of the way. That what I think the hesitation was, the reason he asked for a variance is because it is a change of use. It's a house, now it's a house with a business in it. That's a change of use. It's a significant enough change of use that it ought to be varied. But as to special permit 228, that's water under the bridge. November, there's a meeting, and at that meeting, the request to operate as a B&B is essentially approved. But there is one condition, we all know what the condition is, that the owner lived there, that there be a resident on the premises. What's proposed here from these well-intended and competent people will mean no harm to me or anyone else, no inconvenience, no alarm. What's proposed, though, erases that. It erases the requirement of residency in a residential neighborhood. Look, you have to walk all the way to Mystic Pizza to find a business. You have to walk to Water Street to find it. There's no business up there. Nobody's conducting commercial activity there. This is a purely and strictly commercial activity that they're proposing. That is the change that requires that. It's not the same thing just because I have some carbon dioxide and I decide I want to take out one of those oxygen molecules, is it? Because then we have carbon monoxide, don't we? It's very different. All we did was just take out the one thing. And this is by no means, that's an exaggeration. I'm having fun with it. But what is being suggested here is it's no worries, man. It's no worries. We're going to take it. The owner doesn't have to be there because we have this Cracker Jack system. It's gonna work. Here's one. There's a fire pit less than 100 feet from the property line. my property line, neighbor's property line. Fire pit there. Now, in the bad old days, you know how that went. Smoke would fill my living room and then I would call somebody and eventually somebody would go over and say, dude, you can't burn cardboard when the wind's blowing out of the southeast, blow it all over your neighbors. And it would stop or it wouldn't stop. But my point is it hard to imagine a scenario where basically someone comes back from downtown? It's 11 o'clock, they have their outdoor voices on. Why wouldn't they? They don't want to go to bed yet. I wouldn't. It's a big night. So you go up to the fire pit. You're hanging around. Maybe you have another glass of wine or whatever. Everybody's having a great time. And the wind's blowing a little bit, but you know what the heck? We're here. Oh, you are till you're not. You go home or you go inside. The sparks are still flying. And something catches fire. It's 100 feet, less than 100 feet. The wind's blowing out of the southeast. We never blow out of the southeast in the summertime. So then somebody wakes up at 2 o'clock in the morning, say me, as the fire's creeping across towards my property, and I make a phone call to somebody, police department. That wasn't an example of a fire. Yeah, no fire department's going to come. We're not going to go through this system they've set up for that. But there's a delay. Now, what if instead there's somebody living at the property? That person is the sheriff in town, aren't they? They're the one that says, no, that's too windy, no fire pit for that. Sorry, folks. They're the ones that say, hey, you gotta pipe down out there. We're in the neighborhood. You can't sit out here using the outdoor voices at 2:30 in the morning. These old people have to sleep, they need to rest. There's, I don't know, there's a million things that can happen on your property, or your neighbor's property. And you can just say, knock it off. And if you're the owner and you're there, you do it immediately. You do it immediately because you have skin in the game. You do it because it's your neighbors. The ones you wave to. It's the people who are right there. So what's proposed is, Jack read through it already once, I'm not going to do it again. Let's just say there's a number of steps there. I bet you that works pretty good. And as they say, it works great at the Steamboat Inn. And it gives them the flexibility for their operation. You want to really get flexible, have the owner on the property. He can do anything. Heck, you can appoint his agent, I don't care. But he's there. And I'm safe. In the neighborhood that I am in, where I have paid the money based upon the promise of zoning, that this is how it is here, there's stuff you can't do. But nobody else can do it either. Here's what you can do here. That's our promise. That's what protects your property value. If people don't say, yeah, it's been a residence for 150 years, but now, dude, I gotta tell you, I'm sorry. We're gonna have a business there because the people that run the business are really good folks. You can trust these people. So to that final point, there's a great place in Key West, love about Key West, in Old Town, there's these rooms on Carolyn Street it is. I'm looking at my wife like she would know better than me where it is, she probably does. And it's owned by Pimpton Hotels. And it looks like everything else in Key West. Those little conch houses, it's cute as heck. It is the equivalent of 15 Elm Street in that it looks like everything else in the neighborhood, except it's new. And you say, oh, why not just stay there? That sounds good, I like that. There is nothing that prevents Sonny Glazer were to be in his business interest, which I ultimately and entirely respect, to say, this isn't for me. I thought it was for me. I thought it'd be my second retirement. I don't want to do it. I'm out. I'm out. And he sells it. And of course, the ordinance or the change that's being suggested runs with the land. But now the new owner says, I can have a hotel. It's like the ones down in Key West. Like, this huge building. Why isn't that going to look good at the website? And so Kimpton buys it. But Kimpton's owned by Intercontinental Hotels. So who are you going to call? Who are you going to call? Let's see, 24 hours, I'm going to call, who? Who's going to designate that person? It's not Rosemary. And it's not Sonny. If I had Sonny on speed dial, yeah, I'd be happy. But when he sells, I'm not happy. Who do I see about that? And that's what zoning is there to protect you from, protect all the neighbors from. Not from the well-intended person who's going to manage it beautifully and make it an exquisite property and raise, thank you very much, my property values. It's not about him. It's about what you guys do. You're there to protect us. And you can't do that if you say, no. We're gonna allow what's been a residence for a century and a half plus. It morphed a little bit into a residence where a business was permitted. Into strictly a business. Guys, Steamboat Inn. Is there a busier intersection between New Haven and Providence on a Sunday, Saturday night? Be serious. How many people are going down the street? The boats and the yachts. Me, my wife, and a zillion other people. The hustle and bustle goes on and the bars let out. When they let out and the streets are crowded. And boy, it's a good thing that if you're staying at the Steamboat Inn, you've got somebody that you can call right away. You can call those Ghostbusters and they're gonna come over and they're gonna take care of that problem. Where I live, the only thing happening after 9 o'clock at night is the rabbits and the crickets. There's no noise. It's not the same neighborhood. It doesn't have the same needs. You need to have a guy there. Just like you had to have 100 years ago. And before that. There's another way to do this. And Jim Brennan had it right. In my estimation, it is. I definitely think that's an expansion of use. And you're gonna tell me it's not changing it from a residence to a business, strictly business. It's not an expansion, or change of an expansion, I take that backward, wrong. Change of use, that kind of change of use can only be done by variance. It can't be done by massaging a special permit. That's my view anyway, thank you.
Anyone else wish to address this? Anyone? No?
Good.
Good evening. My name is Bill Ferguson. But it's F-U-R, like fur coat, G-U-E. I live at 118 Edgecombe Street, Vista. Having known my dear friend Peter for a long time. Hello. And so I'm here to speak on behalf of Sunny, who I've known in different instances. So I, at one time, was the president of the Downtown Merchants organization, and Sunny, I worked at the Mystic Museum. And Sunny has always been a wonderful partner to downtown and supportive as a businessman and supportive of the downtown. An active contributor to the projects we all ran for the benefit of the community. And it's always been supportive of it. I have known when I heard Sunny took over the mansion, and I had an informational gathering where I went around the neighborhood and invited people over so they could ask questions and talk to me. It was a wonderful, it was a nice neighborhood event. We all got together and talked and asked questions and got to look at the place, and I thought it was very beneficial. And for me, as someone who was there from the beginning to the end, I felt that everyone there felt better, felt at ease about what was in the future. And then, you know, being a good neighbor, Peter brought this up already about Steamboat Wharf next to residential housing. We have that experience. I'm going to say I know what happens between Steamboat Wharf and the residential apartments that are on Main Street, but I personally never heard of anything negative happening. I feel like he has a skill set to do the same here in what I consider the greatest neighborhood in walked around our neighborhood, you see that we're very tight. I have no qualms about fun. Yes. Say that genuine, honest, and kind person, and I feel blessed to know him as just a friend, but as a new. That's my opinion.
Vote. My name is Roy Parkinson. My wife is Abby. We live at 75 Steamboat, otherwise known as the Gilbert Building, owned by Sonny. And we put together a short statement. I'll just read it. Sonny Glazer and the well-trained staff of Steamboat Inn have created a property with a feeling of quiet and casual elegance. The team that runs the inn in our building is wonderfully attentive and responds quickly to any concerns or needs of the residents. Our comfort and safety is never compromised. The inn is a pleasant, neighborly establishment that Sonny and the staff have molded to fit into and complement our town. They provide service to their guests that exceed all expectations. We are sure that the same pride and service will continue at the Captain's Sonny and his staff maintain another pleasant addition to this.
My name is Alan Armstrong. I live at 19 Elm Street. We've lived in our house 12 years. So I've experienced the residential boarding house that was there, and the mess that was, and the fires that were happening on patios. It was a disaster. Mr. Gates kind of rectified the appearance of the building, but then we all know how that went from there. It was a nightmare. Having met Mr. Glazer, I am no doubt he seems very nice. He's done a great job turning the building around. I know Roy, and talking to other people, I have no doubt that intentions are great and that things will be fine when he owns it. My concern is the state of this areas is that should this change hands, that if I'm still on the property, that now it's owned by Vermont Inn or something changes. And I think the system that works downtown may work fine there, but what happens when it's not under that control? It's going forward that concerns a lot of people that live in the adjacent. There have been problems with call people. I have no doubt that if I call, something will happen. If it changes hands, what happens at that point? That's the concern. Homeowner that has a big adjacent property. So that's it.
Hi, my name is Mary Lou Sussy, S-U-S. Live at 70 Stable Wharf in apartment number 33, which is also called the Gilbert Building. I again wrote some notes. I've lived next to Steamboat Inn for about 40 years. The one thing I've noticed is how the staff takes pride in the overall workings of the inn. Never any trash, anything out of place, is always neat and clean. Sonny seems to want to maintain the history and integrity of all things Mystic without trying to modernize them, but by improving already existing structures and amenities. The employees seem to enjoy working with Sonny, and it shows in the everyday operation of the inn, with someone being available 24/7 to address the needs of the guests and us. It's always quiet at the inn, and I've never experienced any unpleasant, loud, or disturbing noises. Kudos to Sonny and his staff and the addition to another great inn in our beautiful downtown.
Yeah, and if anyone is attending virtually and wants to speak to the commission, you do need to raise your hand.
Yes. I'll open up the commissioners.
I have a question. Here on the go. This had happened 6 months ago. Morgan had concluded our discussions. Short-term rental would be quite different. It's flexible. Right now, I think we're coming at odds. Precisely not what we say for short term. Having something who's there, even if it's somebody's appointed. Much as it might make sense, that's certainly seems hard to order. If it's turned over, it's ever. When this doesn't wait. For the same reason as a form. And for David Steve O'Hannon, place are terrific, but it is downtown district. Expected not to be compliant. So it doesn't have any spaces on its own. Gathering. This has built in delightful outdoor spaces, which is 11 people's living houses backyard. Exactly the reason that we had a problem with it. Sure. I didn't understand. It's quite on par with exactly. We better go forward with this. First action we'll have taken will be to counter what we just decided. It does go entirely towards the fact that front ownership might be absolutely ownership's in function goes. Just here. Very vital, different operation. I know it, and also the language there, owner occupied bed and breakfast with me. Those would be okay because there's always management there, not necessarily an owner, but it's management always there, except when they're running out. Leaving every evening. Answering certain. You decide. Less owner occupied, maybe the owner occupied. Owner was on vacation. Taking that out.
I really was struggling with it. I think that this really requires either a variance or no change. Look at our regulations. Regulations, residential. This is moving away. I realize that that what makes me struggle is the pre-existing non-conforming that Steve has to say, but I think now it spoke, I agree with him. It's sort of it smacks in the face of what. No, I understand. But that's so that's it. And then
Not its use.
yeah, no.
Not its use. The only thing is condition. Does a person have to use?
I mean, I look at our regulations. Where's the rest? Much as I would like to say, you know, this is looks like a great operation. I believe that. That's what I get around that.
I do, I was looking at this quite a bit from different angles. To me, it's almost a spot zoning type situation, but it certainly does fly in the face what we've been discussing. Now, and also with the public, what the majority of the public was saying over the course of numerous public short-term rentals to issues around that. I have no doubt that owners change and owners are very different. But since this is a change to the property, to the plan, if you are concerned about the future, I'm concerned about also what kind of access do the residents have to really get somebody to solve the problem. With that close, park pits and stuff like that, not a residential neighborhood anymore, like most of them. So, I think the other thing too, this is, I guess I don't understand this right away. You know, was a recently purchased property and certainly well known, you know, what the zoning regulations for the property, but it would seem to grant something like this would almost be an encouragement for other people. If we can buy a big residential deal here, all we have to do is go to the plan zone commission. We have a commercial properties that could be plus a real problem. But I just think the main thing is this isn't in line with all of our discussion. What we've been talking about in the last many months. Those are my concerns.
As you were correct, I was chairman of the zoning commission back when this was all going. And minor clarification to what you were saying is that it was not a resident, it was a pre-existing non-conformance. So that means that it was illegal to have an apartment building in the middle of the residential street. They were making money on it, so it was a commercial operation. Now, zoning hates pre-existing non-conformances. We would like to make them conforming if we could. And we would like to improve them if we could. And so many of the properties that we've had in the past that were pre-existing non-conformances, a gas station or something where it shouldn't be, we would say, yes, you could expand, but you got to do this, this, and this to make it better. You know, we're not going to make you shut down because that's not within our power. So with this, we thought the same thing. We said, we would like to continue it, or we will let you continue it with this special permit. But we're putting conditions on it. We're trying to make it as close to a resident as we could. And that was by enforcing, putting in the criteria that the owner had to be there. And so here we are. Obviously, that owner did not conform with many of the other conditions that were also put in this. There were parties, there were outside people coming in. And I agree wholeheartedly that the new owner will probably not do those things. But I share the same concerns as everybody else, that he can sell the property. Special permit goes with the property. So we do have a point.
Sure. If I could ask the applicant, actually, if I can just set the stage for a problem at the mansion, right? So in an RS-12 zone, I believe someone said, you know, usually they would call a number. Mostly what happens in RS-12 zone, you call the police, right? So if a police is called, how does the police interface with the proposed mansion or steamboat in at this time? And how is that rectified? Does someone always show up, or do you allow the police to solve that problem if there is one?
So it would depend on why the police. Yeah. If there was a complaint, if it goes through the answering service, it automatically goes to us first. The police also have the phone number and can call us as well. But obviously, if they're first and they have access to get in, we've worked with them to make sure that, you know, if there's anything that they need to do or get in, if it's locked, they can.
Sure.
You know, because we haven't, for example, we have had a situation, unfortunately, at Steamboat, someone had a heart attack. Nobody could get, the ambulance got there in no time. They were able to access, get in, and we were there moments afterwards. You know, but there was no lapse in any time of anything ever happening. And that's why we worked also very well with, that we invited the fire marshal in. As soon as we said, okay, let's go through this from the basement through the attic or the Belvedere. What do we need to fix? How do we make this the way it's supposed to be? And that's why it was so.
I'd be a little more precise, I guess, in my question then. So if the police is called at the Steamboat Inn,
Mhm.
does the police call the Steamboat Inn or do they show up?
They show up.
They show up.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And so is there an interface that the police calls that number, the number, the night number?
Our main number. If they
Okay.
want to, absolutely. They're, you know,
Our main number at both is actually the dial-in.
right, that's what I was gonna
Because
say.
it could be a room guest having an emergency. My husband's having a heart attack, and that goes directly, then the answering service. Call 911.
God, I
But
just
that's
want-
what you call
I wanted to know
911
the
before you
precision.
call
Yeah,
911.
right,
That's the
right.
answer. Thank you very much. So one of the issues, and I understand on the floor plan, that was a change. If you look back upon the previous low bar owner, I'll say, certain things bothered neighbors. We have patio, we have a fire pit, yet within your application, basically nothing has changed. So was there a thought that maybe you should address that within this application? Understanding those are the biggest problems as far as the neighbors were concerned.
Are we talking about the fire pit
Fire
and
pit
those
and the
kind of
patio,
things?
and the patio, just those two.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, you know, the fire pit, look, about 15, 20 years ago, I had a house fire. That's something I caused. It was an electrical fire. I take it seriously. And I hear what you're saying about that. It's something I might want to consider not to have it there. I would not want my guests out there making their own fires. Absolutely not. Again, after hours, they have to be quiet. That's just it. One other thing I want to add, because I know we're talking about Steamboat Inn, it's noisy down there. Steamboat Inn is actually more of a challenge because you do have people coming from the bars. Our common area is the dock. People congregate on the dock. We have chairs from Steamboat Wharf that say, Steamboat Wharf only. That occasionally it happens. You get these late night drinkers. We are there to take care of them, whether it be us or police or somebody. Take care of it. It's more challenging down there. I believe we're up to the challenge that happens.
I just have to confirm, I think Steve confirmed it with staff. So if a special permit is provided for this, it carries through for the remainder. It doesn't, as far as a new owner, that doesn't really matter. It carries forward from the property.
That's correct. It runs with. And then just one other clarification.
Sure.
Both the previous zoning regulations and the current zoning regulations allow for a change of a pre-existing non-conforming use to another non-conforming use by special permit. In granting that special permit, the commission has to find that the new non-conforming use has less of an impact on the neighbor, along with a couple of other things. And that's what the zoning commission did back in the.
That's all, Mr. Chair.
I think there's a little confusion. Existing house versus what we have here, which is situation. But
think we ought to look at what we're really trying to do. Maybe, you know, that confusing, that it refers back to 379. Really, I don't know where that definition, other than what the application. And take that. This and saying that's what we're doing, rather than the actual. They're requesting. Which I can read them. Here. Where it says. This is what I think we're really trying to do. These words, the hotel/motel. Shall one maintain an on-call telephone system. The town officials, including emergency responders, who immediately speak, representative of the owner 24 hours a day. And 2, have a representative of the owner on the property available. On the property within 60 minutes, taking a call from a guest. All of the time.
That's right, if you are, once the
Which is
hearing is
that
closed,
it's
you can
more-
choose to approve.
Tighter control than we're talking about. It means you pick up the phone, have a number, and you can communicate with the owner right away.
Or is that just-
Well, if you say it's owner occupied, the owner may not be present on site when you want. He might take an hour or 2 hours to find it. But this is always. On, right away.
I think that's better than what's there.
Yes, because it's, if you're an owner occupied, you're not able to.
This doesn't
And
say
you're
owner
only limiting it. One guest or rental. At a place, here you have 8,
Here you have 8. Quite different.
so it's a lot different. No, it's different.
And the owner puts down how they reach, like a settlement.
Yeah. Right.
Every place I've ever stayed, they
Yeah,
don't
so-
And I think living there doesn't. Look that. Versus. I don't know, then you have the challenge of, well, okay, there's a certain technology is really not specified.
Well, if
It's
you-
like more than one of these both.
and if the next owner doesn't have a service. Go back to. Or maybe that's what. But
We'd have to go.
No,
The way it is.
no, to have it, the owner.
The only way to test it.
Hmm?
The only way to test it. Was
Well-
to do random checks. I'm gonna make sure it's the case. Once a week, on a random day, you get a phone call and you must be there. I could do that. That's gonna
But we
happen.
have a business with a firm process, right? The process seems like a pretty concrete process. Right? In my opinion, if we're just judging versus occupied time, their process is business group. As far as that's.
They have more representatives. than a motel, it's renting out a couple of rooms. Different type of situation.
We're still in.
Okay.
Yeah, we still have,
Yeah, that's it.
but we have, we can have a response from.
I didn't want to, yeah, this might be a good discussion.
Because there were a couple of questions.
Right, yes, and I'll try to organize my thoughts, but as in any land use application, you look the applicant. Right? So we wanted to present to you, and I think we did a fairly good job, explaining who this applicant is. But I understand, I've been doing land use, that it's the use of the land this commission has to consider. So you have to consider and decide making a decision. The universal issue that always comes up in land use is who's the owner? We have scores of residentially zoned property in this town. Every owner does not treat their land or interact with their neighbors the way we would always like them to interact, right? So you can have a bad neighbor, it can be owner occupied, you may wish they didn't live there next to you, but you're gonna have bad owners. Zoning can only do, I think, so much to control like a bad owner. My neighbor turns his backyard into a junkyard, right? Like what, there's limits, or if they have fire pits, some neighbors have fire pits, some neighbors burn cardboard and, and create a lot of smoke. This is part of living in society. So we can control that only so much. When you look at this particular application, as the chairman pointed out, we don't start with a blank slate. This isn't a blank slate. Check pointed out, the decision has been made, the ship has sailed. This is a pre-existing non-conforming use that was allowed to become commercial enterprise. A hotel motel, those are the words that are right in that 1998 special permit. So it's a hotel motel. And then as a condition, comfort condition pulled out from what the use was that it be owner occupied. So this commission, looks at many applications. You understand the issues with conditions. So you put them on there, put some guardrails up as to the use. The use is allowed. Now you have guardrails. That was the guardrail that was imposed. The question is that guardrail needed? Is that the best guardrail or not? What we've presented to you is we showed you that there's other options. I think, Chairman, you did a good job in terms of what is owner occupied. You put someone in there, someone owns it, they go away for 2 weeks. They can still run it as a hotel, but they don't have to be there. They don't have to tell anyone where they go. There's no, there's no guardrails. I mean, it makes sense that, a reasonable person would say, okay, this is my cell phone number, I'm gonna be on Cape Cod, whatever. But they might tell the person who's house sitting for them, and we have guests coming Thursday to Friday or Thursday to Monday, whatever. But they don't have to tell the neighbors. They don't have to tell the town. Zoning enforcement officer doesn't have to have any way to get in touch with them. The police don't have, you don't have to provide the police or anyone with any way to get in touch with them. I think it's a fair point that if you're going to have this type of use in a residential zone, and it made sense that if that's what the applicant in 1998 wanted or proposed or whatever, that they were going to live there, that made sense. But I think if you step back and say, we're going to have a hotel in a residential zone, how do we make it safe for everyone? And a 24-hour on-call system is the way to make it safe. We're not, it's not, with all due respect, this isn't a short-term rental. Again, that ship has sailed. It's a hotel. It's going to be a hotel. So how do you put the guardrails on at this location so that the neighbors, guests, the town officials, the police, they know who to call? I mean, if something happens at a residential, you see fire across the street from you coming out of the windows, you can call 911. Then 911 may not know who to get in touch with for the owner of the house. I mean, they may have to go through records, maybe, but there's no number. It's not like, oh, this is his mansion. We know to call this particular number, which will be the case here. So to the chairman's point, you actually have more control than you would if it was just owner occupied. As I said, and there were some comments about, does it run with the land? And This isn't the time to second guess the decision that was made 25 years ago. That decision was made. And, you know, and as the owner of the property, because it runs with the land, Sonny and his LLC have a right to run this as a hotel. We are simply asking to revise one condition. The condition was there to have controls, have safe factors of safety. We're saying there's another way to do it. And we're showing you, and why do we spend the time talking about Sonny and having Rosemary talk and have neighbors come and talk about the way Steamboat Inn does it? Because we want to show you that there is a way to do it and it works. And it doesn't depend just on it being Sonny Glazer and being a nice guy or Rosemary being a really good manager. It's a very simple proposal. It's a 24-hour system. If when this property gets sold to whoever, the next person has to have a system. They have to have someone show up within an hour. It's objective. Not a situation where, well, it's great you have an owner in the house, but that owner may be a bad owner. We know what a bad owner would be. If Mr. Gates lived in this house for the last 5-6 years, it wouldn't have made things any better. He would have just been there. And then he could have said, I'm totally complying with your condition. I'm living in the house. You know, he can still violate other zoning regulation. But being in the house isn't the cure-all to running this properly, efficiently, and having a safety factor for the neighbors and the guests. That's what I really would like you to focus on. You can't go back and change what's been done. All we can ask you is that, given sort of what we have today, everyone has cell phones, there's ways to be in constant communication. So requiring a use like this, have an on-call system 24 hours a day, I would say is better than just having owner on site. There was some comments about whether this would encourage the same use, you know, other people coming forward with a big house. This is a very unique situation. It was a non-conforming use. They had turned it into apartments in World War II. And you had this grand property, you know, fall into disrepair. One of the neighbors talked about how it didn't look good. So, you know, by having one owner who takes care of it, you know, you have that attention to it. But also you have the uniqueness in that I don't think there are a number of non-conforming old apartment buildings, illegal apartment buildings around town that people are going to want to turn into hotels. So I don't think this is bad precedent for other uses in town. I don't think this is going to encourage anyone to turn their house into a hotel. It can't happen. If it's a house now in a residential zone, it has to stay a house. I don't think it requires a variance because it has a special permit, and as your assistant planner said, it was approved under those regulations, one non-conforming use to a different non-conforming permit at the time, had less impact on the neighborhood. The use isn't changing, still going to be a hotel, just a matter of how you control it. What are the guardrails? I think there was a question regarding who would have access to the number. I think I've alluded to this, but maybe we just get it on the record. Everyone.
Yeah, so the main number at the Steamboat Inn takes care of the Steamboat Inn, and the main number at Captain's Mansion, it's the same thing. As soon as you put that on night mode, it goes directly to our answering service. It gets a hold of one of us.
And anyone can call that number.
Anyone can call that, absolutely.
Just like
It's
you
the
would call.
main phone number.
Right. Just like if my neighbor was having a loud party and I had their phone number, I wanted to call them, I didn't want to go over and, you know, maybe have a confrontation, I would call their number. It's actually, I think, there's some neighbors, I don't know, everyone has different experiences. By some neighbors, you wouldn't want to go over to their house if they're having a loud party. You know, maybe you can only call them. But here's a better option. You can call this number, you get to the owner who has a proprietary interest in the business, not to have to see it turn into, you know, animal house. So I think minor issue, but it came up, I thought of it and somebody can talk to it. Now he's installed a security camera, so at any time he can see what is going on the property. That's a fairly standard thing. We're not asking it to be a condition, but just the reality of modern business and property management. This isn't going to be, a home alone situation. There was a question about whether the language runs with the land. It does run with the land, or motel, hotel use runs with the land. As I said, this isn't just about Sunny. The question of whether this is a proper land use control. In this case, I think rather than the sort of amorphous owner occupied, that this is actually a more quantifiable control to go along with a permitted hotel at this location. I think I'll pause there. Anyone on the commission has questions, please, or?
Wait, let me just throw out something. I think one thing that might make it closer is Steamboat Inn. You live next door.
Yeah, right.
You live next door.
Right down. Yeah.
You guys live next door.
Yes.
You're pretty much a resident.
Mhm.
So that's one big difference. We'll have this other place where you're not a resident, you're not there. But you're there. So that's one of the things I just heartburn about as we went through this thing. Difference would be if your neighbor has a problem. You call your neighbor, you probably have his number, you might have a key in your kitchen drawer. So you call
But
your
not
neighbor.
everyone does.
Not everyone does.
There's some neighbors
That's very true. This is a case where the neighbor happens to have 8 rotating occupants. So it'd be one thing if it went to his answering machine, answering service rather, then within an hour he'll have something, as opposed to having your phone number. My neighbors have my phone number. Even if I let out my house, then my house to my brother who comes in while I'm not there. Get a call from my neighbor wherever I am. That was my neighbor. That's targeting short-term rental. And this quacks like a duck. It's a short-term rental. Because that's what we were saying, a hotel and a short-term rental are kind of the same thing. They just kind of have different rules. They are short-term rental, less than 30 days. It's a short-term.
that involved in discussions about short-term rentals. Yes, it doesn't matter here what my opinion is.
Right.
But the point, whereas if my neighbor starts renting their house, no pre-existing use, no non-conforming use, just starts doing it. And now what we know, yes, you want those guardrails on, and if it's owner occupied, that makes perfect sense. But where you have a use that's already established, not just by non-conformity, but having gone through the process back in the day, through the regulations, acknowledged there was a non-conforming use, and now we're changing it to another non-conforming use, a hotel motel, we're putting a condition on it. Like that's, I'm all for it. You got to play it where it lies. That's where it lies. I'm not talking about establishing a new use or anything like that. So if the use is going to happen, how do you control it? What's appropriate? And I won't say, for short-term rentals, a reasonable thing to have the owner there. Here, I think it's, as I said, actually even more reasonable to have, rather than sort of the amorphous owner-occupied position, which, you know, we take things for granted when we're approving things. I mean, I go back and look at approvals. Want to change uses of sites, and you understand what happened in the past, you can recreate it. But it's based on a lot of assumptions that, like, oh, the owner's going to be responsible. We always have this assumption, well, if the owner's there, the owner will be responsible. That's generally true, but not universally, as we learned. As I said, Mr. Gates lived at the property for the last 5 years. It wouldn't have made any difference, wouldn't have made it better. I don't think if you went over and knocked on his door, he would have stopped the parties and, you know, doused the fire pits. So what is a reasonable control in a situation like that? Where you know you're gonna have 8 rooms, gonna be 8 rooms, what's a reasonable control? I think having the phone number, having people required to be on site. For this type of.
I have one other. So I like to actually have staff, and I understand the distinction the applicant has here this evening. What is the exact language of the B and B as far as management being on site?
Under the current regulations.
Correct.
But I'm thinking it's,
Yeah.
you'll find that in the definition. The owner no
So I'm saying it's
regulation.
different, but I understand that it's different. Now, I'm just asking for clarification.
Little bit of-
Do you have it right handy? Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, bed and breakfast and owner occupied residential facility that is managed by the property owner provides transient lodging to the general public. Out in room cooking.
So again, that is a new regulation as of the 2019 revision. There were no provisions. 1998 for it. That's why it's.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is. Oh, I think it's another difference. Gotta think about short-term rentals. They can't afford the answering. Why not? Let's do it. That's very simple. No, but I mean, you actually have a person here that answers the phone. They have an answering service. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. If you're owner occupied, you're not paying for that. Only if it's required. Which maybe we should make that requirement. And it's simple enough as you gotta get out your phone.
Exactly.
Where if you're in Miami, I don't care, you're gonna answer your phone.
You can have someone show up.
It's off topic.
Yeah.
That's off topic. But I'm saying we're talking about what kind of, what's the guardrail? Is it equal guardrail or is it current? No, I said this is that. But do we need more information?
Have you heard briefly? That's not. I mean, a minute or less. May I be heard again for a minute or less?
Full time.
Yeah.
And a judge that said that one. I was doing a sentence and you said, you're still talking. Again, Peter Solari. Just very quickly, the question that hasn't been really answered here is what happens next? What happens when the property is sold? If the property is sold, we can agree that the change, if there is one, runs with the land, right?
That means he has to follow the rules.
Okay, and so the new owner is Kimpton Hotels, which is subsidiary of International Continental Hotels. So who do they call them?
Whatever they have, remember.
They have somebody
They
like
have to
Rosemary.
meet-
Sorry.
No, they have to meet. Red. They
Okay,
have to have somebody answering the phone.
can you appreciate that there's a greater deal of opacity with that? If it's an organization other than these fine people who live in the neighborhood? Can you appreciate that our concern would be
that there is nobody, there's nobody to reach.
then they aren't meeting the requirement.
Well, that may be,
That
but we
has,
created the opportunity for that to arise. I have a simple solution. Change the words from owner occupied to owner or his agent or designee. Must be on the premises.
that isn't necessary right now. It doesn't say person has to be present 24 hours a day on the premises.
Correct. I'm just offering you a solution should you decide.
But that's not today's rule.
Very
It's
good.
never, it's not a realistic.
Thank you, Mr.
Do we need more?
We rest.
Yeah, we're gonna have any concerns of closing.
Um,
Hearing. We
Just-
can't really see.
Yeah.
Any new,
right.
any new information, and it can only be debated among the people.
Just to sort of end with, as two things. that- Just to emphasize. A rule, straightforward objective rule, is easier to enforce. than the amorphous owner occupied. It will run with the land. And it said, anyone who buys this is gonna have to comply with that. This is a debate and arguments you've probably heard with nearly every controversial. I don't even think this is very controversial, but clearly it is. Application, people always speculate as to, well, what if they don't do this? What if the stormwater management system doesn't handle the 5-year flood? What if, the parking isn't sufficient to, have all cars that are gonna come? But what this commission should consider, just like with stormwater management, parking regulations, is those are all very objective. An engineer can tell you if it's gonna handle the stormwater. You can count the number of parking spaces. What we're offering you here is something more akin to that than, well, owner being on the property is somehow gonna make everything all right. As compared to having a system in place that requires people to be responsive and to be on the property when they need to be on the property is somehow less than. And I would posit that it's actually more than, because it's objective. Like having the right number of parking spaces, like having the right size pipes and drainage system. So with that close, thank you for your attention. I appreciate neighbors, their interest, and their concern because they've seen the worst of it. I think that's the worst of it. I don't know how much worse it can get than waking up one morning and seeing a wedding getting put together next to your house. That you had no idea what's gonna happen. I know I walked by that and I went, what's going on? So I get it. But when you think about, and when the commission considers the land use here, what's approved, how do you control it? This is the best way to do it.
Additional input.
No, don't.
Anybody on the commission?
I have a question. Go to organization. Is a yes, no? I'll give you a for instance, is that now it sounds like
Oh,
a long time to have something going on midnight. Have to wait till 1 o'clock before. Something needs that from the corporation.
we can modify the.
You can to some extent. I think that is an easy modification. all of a sudden decide that this has to be blue or something, that's totally. Okay.
Actually, that's not, I think. Even if they're. Because we still get input.
From staff.
From the staff. Regarding not to do A or B, but any.
But given that you've raised some sort of modification and the hearing is open, the applicant might want.
Yeah, I'd like to hear, if it really is something that.
Actually, because what I'm saying is, when you reduce the timing of it, that factor makes it so that you gotta have somebody like really close by. XYZ Corporation is required to have somebody there. Means they've gotta have somebody.
But it still requires somebody to be able to talk to.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but
Hal has raised the modification. Could we also potentially raise the modification? Because there was a waiver, or maybe call it omission, regarding location. And could the applicant also address the situation of patio and fire pit as far as modification? That,
Okay, all we can do is, all we're addressing. Whether it has to be owner or occupied.
but Hal asked the timing of it.
No, because, no, the proposal
Okay, so I'm good with that.
says
Just ask
it's
whether
present
it's
on
good or
your
not.
property.
Thank you.
60 minutes.
But your suggestion has to do more of the case plan.
Site plans.
Correct.
Yeah, that can be not part of the special.
That's correct.
That's not part of
Permit
this application.
228. You want me to speak on the timing?
Yeah,
of that?
that's what you could.
So, like we're talking about here, putting up the guardrails. That's originally what we came up with, was an hour. It absolutely could be less. I mean, I think there's 6 of us all within 15 minutes. And we've never had an issue where we've been more than 20 minutes. I wouldn't want to say that and then not meet that. I want to meet what the requirements are that we said here. I want to work with you. That's why I guess they were set a little bit longer, still knowing that we can absolutely do quite a bit less than that. That would be our plan, to get there immediately. There's 2 of us right in downtown that could be there. It only takes me 5 minutes to get up there.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
That's why 60 minutes sometimes, having looked at like short-term rental, like non-owner occupied, that's a pretty common amount. So, but because yeah, just as if there was the owner who was out at the grocery store or, at the mall, like for the afternoon, they might not be that. Want to give it a short enough amount of time, but not too long, be reasonable. And set appropriate expectations. But I'm not saying that a modification down to 5 minutes. Just, we wouldn't want to set up for failure. That's all we're saying.
Bridge is stuck on.
Bridge is stuck over.
It's downtown Vista, right? Yeah.
There'll be excuses.
This is a max.
All right. So, yeah. Groton occupied at least 6 months, that you expect the owner sleeping there. Right. Lose that.
Is the owner good at waking up in the middle of the night? Did he take an Ambien the night before?
Maybe smelling the smoke too. So.
Was there anything else? I'll make a motion and close the public hearing. Second. Special permit 37. Moved and seconded. Discussion. Public hearing. Special permit 379. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, any abstention? Motion is carried. Now, date one. Members of the. Not receive any new. The next item on the agenda is consideration of public hearings. We have regular 2303 multi. Parking.
That was sent out.
Huh?
That was sent out.
Right. For your views. Yes.
Can you guys take that outside?
Move, make a motion. Make a motion. Regular 23 version parking motion to approve zoning regulation. Regular 23 -03 to 1 and section definition include both direct current fast charging station, both level 2 charging, both to the list of definitions. 2 and then section 5.1 -8.g multi-unit dwelling. 5.1 -8h version. Both accommodate large recreational equipment. 3. Amend section 8.2 table of parking requirements to alter the number of parking spaces required for this area. 4. Amend 8.2 section 8.2-4.b electric vehicle off-street parking requirements for Public Act 22-5. 5. Amend section 8.2-17 bicycle parking to accommodate bikes in all multi-unit districts in accessible fashion. Town of Groton Planning and Zoning. Amendment regular 23-03 pursuant to findings for approval. 1. The zoning text amendment is consistent with the 2016 Plan of Conservation and Development with regards to recommendation regarding sustainable development, transportation and sustainable energy goals, evaluation of current developments, and review of parking. 2. This amendment is consistent with 22-3. This amendment is made in accordance with the comprehensive of the environment and Long Island Sound and Port provisions of PGSA. 2. The effective date of this amendment shall be 2020. Second. Thanks. Move second. Any discussion?
This typo, multi-unit.
That just-
What's that? You can let it typo go.
No.
So no typo was
Not a
noted, we will
change.
fix
I
it.
don't want to.
Add a dash.
Yeah.
Well, actually, by reading it. Really? Excellent. It's just nice.
That's a new one.
What's that? You're gonna have to put it. Come on. Any discussion on the motion?
I thought you had looked at me and I said, no,
No,
I can't vote.
Cannot speak. No, seriously.
Don't worry.
You cannot talk.
Thank you for the
No,
clarification.
no,
Thank you, though, Mr. Chairman. I do appreciate it.
That was one.
Good, I'm good.
Report on. Motion to approve. Regular 20. Charles, say aye. Aye. Opposed, the abstention, motion carried. That's 379 Athens. This one, we're given a draft motion by that's,
I think yours,
I would like to insert
I think
the
that makes,
actual words.
yes. I think that makes sense, and
So we all know.
if that's what you choose to do,
Well, I
but
think I have to make a motion. To
yes,
say,
yes, and I would put that,
oh, I'll-
go ahead.
Will we get that?
You were,
no, it's part of my handout, I mean, it's part of the,
there's a limited number of
oh,
copies here,
the
guys.
motion. I see. Words, I was gonna propose in. And then,
Or you could put it into the body of the motion.
oh, I want to put it as a body of the motion. I would move the motion. Worded for the first section that said. Subject to
Could say something
So,
like modify the
you-
condition to read,
or by to the following
there you go.
conditions. And put in the second.
No, you're right, I think that,
About this, never see. Okay, so I'll make a motion for Captain Mansion. 37, motion to approve special permit number 37. To amend special permit 228 on condition. Hotel, the owner occupied to the following condition. Subject to the following. Read what was text given to us. That will be the end. What would be the hotel slash hotel. One, maintain an all on-call telephone system that allows guests or town officials, including emergency responders, to immediately speak to the representative of the owner 24 hours per day. And two, have a representative property present on the property 60 minutes, taking a call from the guest.
This, this, special permit.
So the language of the applicant is the first condition. Second
Right.
condition would be that
The
the on-site.
on-site amenities.
Introduction,
Approved.
the hotel motel.
Yes, they-
Forever's in the same. building.
Oh,
There's
say
something
the,
you're supposed to do.
the hotel, motel, on-site amenities shall be used by guests only. That's basis on. The commission finds that this application is conditions complies with sections 5.1-2.e of the zoning regulation, not cause any environmental impacts on adjacent water bodies, including water. Second. Second. Is there any discussion?
Lots.
First time to read it.
So,
I'll start with you, Steve.
well,
Since you're the
it was a
old
long,
timer here.
it was a long, long time. But, you know,
Last century.
I was trying to, you know, remember all the, you know, same kind of things. People were worried about losing their faith. It's the exact same discussion. And, you know, we thought that, as that, and, you know, that control on was thinking it was actually good. But, I don't think, I mean, I know these phone things, but, you know, you call somebody, they couldn't. All they're gonna do is relay it over this, 60 minutes, if something's going on, that's gonna be long enough. If somebody shows up at the property in 60 minutes to fix a noise disturbance, drinking issue, or fight breaks out, urgency, 50 minutes is a long time, even 30 minutes.
Yeah, but the guy might not even. Yeah.
It's his house.
Yes,
It's his house.
he's not there.
He doesn't have.
He has to be.
Yeah, we-
present.
No, that's why he asked for investment. Meaning, what is that? Doesn't mean I can there 20. Hey,
Well, I'm not at my house.
That's-
But I sleep there.
yeah.
That's the
that's
key.
Those are important areas.
But those are the important.
But what if
aspects.
you want the other?
But those things happen, but 99%.
That's 24 hours a day, so.
I think that the fallback to have emergency number when I'm not there is gonna happen.
You're running a hotel.
They're running a hotel. I might, friends of mine, the Amazon. And, you know, they were there, were owner occupied, but they, and then somebody else. So, and there were emergency numbers. Right on the, I just don't see, you know, especially the way we're trying to go short-term rentals, make it as residential looking as we've been. Why we would remove the one that has, you know, the guardrail. Put in five things. And that's.
Yes, thanks. Yeah, I'm really coming out, same way Steve was on. Basically, you got 8 units here, and small acres, surrounded by 11 homes. Maybe more, because it's one of the smaller lots, so you really got a lot of.
I think it's 11, not including one that doesn't really.
Right, that's what I was trying to, somewhere.
Well, somebody.
10, 11. But then you really got a lot of homes. Noise circle there. And I think owner occupied makes a huge difference. I appreciate the fact that all kinds of other ways to solve it. Big. I think in this situation, given the area you're in, neighbors, past history, the fact that we not have such a great. And I think listening to the public for so many months too, is always different. There's one thing, and there's people on different sides, because there's people that own it. But most of the people were willing to come, sit there, wait for their turn, talk, back, say owner occupied.
I'm seeing. Just for this.
Sure. So that's why, especially, I guess, you have a lot of opportunity for people to really noisy at your house or away, you're having fun. I just think having someone who's really there, and that person would certainly be best at making sure it's just the best. Other type, occupied makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I struggled with this, but it really is very simple. Struggle with this definition of what is residential. I don't have a definition for that word. Regulation. But I think doing the short-term rental is vague. Number 2 then becomes our definition of what represent. I mean, that's what, if this is a residential zone, we're saying that this is okay. Then this becomes what our, this becomes our definition of what residential is, that you don't have to. An owner, resident on the property is what makes it residential. That's, I believe, I wasn't here until 2002, what they were doing in what you did then was you attempted to maintain status, and that's the only guardrail we have. We don't, planning and zoning, we don't have. That's our tool. We've got a toolbox with one hammer in it. It sounds like a wonderful business, great operational. Doesn't sound like residential. Or even pretending to be it. No.
Flexible. Because in this case, I'd say, I haven't said earlier, we're agent. Somebody lives there. So it makes it impressive. I would not have too much trouble saying somebody lives there. Under the I'm sort of agreeing with their case. I'd be okay with it. Wouldn't if the guy who owned it wasn't the guy living there 6 months out of the year. Somebody. I understand the guardrail thing. I don't yet guardrail thing makes sense. Very fine. answer the phone right away. We want him to fix it right away. I don't know how to make the team. Get somebody there. Very necessary. So I was just going to suggest among those things, maybe have somebody there within a half an hour. So they have to be very, very close. You have to employ someone who's very, very kind of gets away from the moment. It also has some teeth into it that as it doesn't happen. Ever. Who's hurting at that moment? Or we can go that really. Neighbor, it's a different story. Your neighbor. Yes, we don't. In fact, it is a resident of the guy who lives there. Boy, around the corner, so he can be there. All 11 neighbors can know who that is. That's kind of sort of a second best. That's also okay with just. I was in favor, by the way, but I respect it. Occupied. I'd be okay with if it's not actually. They're really close. Smell the smoke at the same time, really noisy. That's what resident is.
That's what resident doesn't have to be the owner.
That's correct, that's what I'm saying, that's actually the owner, right now it says owner.
Someone who
Lives there.
that's
Okay, if they
the legal address, that's what makes it.
I'm okay with the technicality, I'm okay if they live across the street down. A block away, but also someone. Yeah, right.
Well, it's, I don't know how. No, may not know.
You may not,
Can't find somebody's number. Phone book set.
except, oh, yes, you can, if you have your phone. Whitepages.com.
If you can, but you have to know.
But that's okay, because
But
in
if-
those circumstances, you qualify. In those circumstances, those are the odd circumstances. Not because there's fire pit, party.
Also, the
Well,
idea.
that's a
that-
little, yeah, but then you want to call it party.
Only if there's a hazard, not if they're just being noisy and drinking.
If there's a fire and a concern, I want to go directly.
Oh, sure, I'm just talking about, it's 11 o'clock, it's 12 o'clock, it's
And I
1
had a case with a, on a short-term, condo complex. Park City. We got there, and a fire alarm. Oh, very. I called in the owner, just so I could get hold of him, but I didn't know. Well, what are they gonna do? Nothing. So you have to try to get hold of somebody. That's, that's there, and they had nobody on site there. Finally found a number, was able to call it. Found out that they've been recurring problem with the alarm system. Association with this. But you can get into those situations. But really having a number call for an emergency would be the better way.
Thing is that emergencies are avoided by if you do have a neighbor. And the next morning, it's the gentle ribbing, boy, Jeff, it sure got a little loud last night, kind of a thing, which you can do with your residential neighbor, but you can't do. Otherwise, you're just calling the police, which is what people really don't want to do. People, I don't.
Nice. Yeah.
It's like last
If
resort.
you have a number to call. You don't have.
Well, but
Do the
even
neighbors
so,
have that? Oh, that's.
Actually,
That's
that was actually one of the problems, by the way. They're coming. Motel shall maintain a home. Yes, we're town officials. The emergency responders. Not for the neighbors.
Although they did say that you just call the same,
Right.
and anybody can call it, I
Could,
understand.
but that's not what's being maintained here. So XYZ Corporation might not do that. That would be one thing. Yes, and the neighbors would all get a 3x5 card with a refrigerator. That would be at least something else.
The one other thing to consider, I'm just thinking about, that renewed and whittles, right? You put a limit on it. Good for 1 year, good for 2 years, you can come back and renew.
that with it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's.
I mean, I'm hearing some people.
I would feel happy
But, yeah,
putting. Hang on now.
it's just something else to consider as a condition.
How about work in this case with littles and we just have them stop a particular practice and we'll be shutting down kids. In this case, here comes up and says, we sold it to XYZ Corporation. XYZ Corporation hasn't been doing the job at all. It's terrible. Shut. But they're out of business.
Cancel this.
So it's a non-conforming pre-existing
I-
use.
I don't know.
I don't think you would go that route. I
No.
think if there were issues, you would just start out with zoning and.
Right.
And then go to court rather than wait until the special permit comes.
Okay, no, that's,
Yeah.
well, but happens.
The special permit requires.
But the normal routine, which would be okay, it's not enforcement happen and then it would happen again.
And then it goes to court.
And then it would go.
Well, why,
We're
why
actually-
wouldn't we start off, because I mean, this is a brand new business.
Not a brand
Well, the problem is all crazy.
Not a brand.
Brand-
owner.
Brand new business,
Yeah.
brand new business and. I mean, I would think we would certainly not, you know, move in most controls. Come on, see how everything goes, and if there are no problems, you know, start backing down.
We can do it in 1 year.
Yeah, but it has, you have to be careful. Do it. Business.
Thanks. I'm not advocating, it's gonna be part of the special permit.
I think we might be in agreement that it's not his business.
That's the concern.
So that's not, no, I'm saying it's the opposite, is that we have a concern.
Oh, no, it's, the
It's the
concern
opposite.
is.
Future.
So my concern is that we're moving over this property, which was carefully kept residential.
No, it wasn't.
They said it had to be
What's
owner
on that
occupied.
side?
It still was
Oh.
residence.
Yeah, it was a name only.
But it never went,
It was a family home. It was long-term rental.
it was sounded like.
It was. Was apartments.
Before,
Well,
that's
that's
what
what
he
he
said,
said.
non-conforming pre-existing use. Back to
That
World
was
War II, it said. So it was residential then, and I think that they were trying to maintain it. That's still a residential.
It was residential.
But it wasn't,
Well, you don't think of it that way because
It was what was zoned.
well, the thing is zoning and legal definitions of what makes it commercial or residential. Different. After a 4-family, 5-family home is considered commercial in the real estate, but we're not in real estate. This is planning and zoning, and it was residential. Maintained as residential. Carefully,
apartment buildings
Barely.
were not permitted in that zone.
yeah, no, because it was.
Or the two
It's
are
already
apartment
based.
buildings versus residential. That's two different things we're talking.
They were
Like
saying,
just
well.
talking residential.
back when we had it.
That still is what would happen.
Yeah.
Same
Those are
person's
leases.
living in it, but the residential, we've had this discussion, is what makes it residential? You know, the resident, the guy who's got the library card at the library across the street.
I think if your property's making money.
It's not pertinent. Application.
Well, it's not, except for the fact that it was maintained as a residential property.
No, it was maintained as a hotel.
With a
With owner occupied. This was not
Just
residential.
there, that it already slid.
Are we ready to?
We're ready to vote. But, no, but maybe the solution would be to improve this. 30 minutes. That would- Time frame, which eliminate the corporational and sending somebody up from New York City. It would force you to have some more. You know what, if you are owner occupied and you have a boat down in the marina, you might want to spend the night down. Not being gonna be.
30 minutes can be a long time. We don't want to set them up to fail.
Well, the phone calls immediately.
Yeah, so,
Also,
I mean, for any,
we have two things. One,
whether
phone
you're
calls,
owner occupied or.
but right now the phone, so I don't know, I think. The only possibility, since I'm also hearing no, it's gotta be an owner there. That was getting to. In fact, telephone system is not allowing guests and town officials. Neighbors and the public to be able to tie to that system. So that would be a change. And then maybe come down to 60 minutes on site, down to something really short. So that you have to have one or maybe two people who are on the phone. Be there. It could be XYZ Corporation. Pay somebody.
But they could pay somebody.
They pay somebody, one of the neighbors to be the guy. Actually, two of the neighbors. Neighbors don't like each other when you're vacationing.
So that might be the consent.
I'd be okay.
Why do you think the neighborhood inside?
Why would they sign? Because they get paid.
But they don't need to.
We've been putting it in place and then the neighbor wants some control because neighbors that would have some powers.
That's what's great.
I told them to fix it, didn't fix it.
Oh.
Actually, power neighbor.
Frightened thought as a neighbors.
It's like me, might frighten him. But you're there. So
But
this
it's
is
like-
applying. I'm sorry.
But it's like that resort area down at Willow Point. It's exceeding the noise time. How would you get hold of those? They were exceeding the time limits of the parties. They're not supposed to, well, it's not allowed to be. But I mean, you get into those areas where having a phone number, call.
At some point, it's the best you can do. Sometimes it's the best you can. Okay, noisy party. At least. Somebody's got to be doing something.
And also, probably on a limit. Type of person.
Yeah, they don't know who they are until they've stayed there.
Oh, no.
And made it miserable for the neighbors. Yeah, and they don't get invited back, that's true. Probably short term. Maybe we get a better review.
They might get.
10 probably get
I think that. Remember.
I think we have a motion. We have a motion.
There is a motion on
Yeah,
the
there's a
floor.
motion.
But you can amend. Right, you can amend the heck out of it.
No.
Yeah, we can.
And then change this 60 minutes to 30 minutes. And then. Yes. Or numbers.
minutes.
30.
30.
That's 30. Yeah, that's.
I'll also be here. 30 minutes or something.
Yep.
Doing something, you just, how do you like? They, members. They butters. No, buddy.
No, anybody. Anybody.
You can send it out to everybody and just.
Neighbors.
How would they get?
Yes.
Or you would just look on.
No, I'm
we
just
have-
wondering what
that's
the
what it'd be.
mechanism is.
No,
because-
we went online. Captain's mansion. We had the number.
Well, there's no like present.
I think so.
That number. should be electoral.
Right, that's all, I just wanted to make sure there was some mechanism.
You want to make that?
You.
I'm saying
That's a sweet.
I
know.
You guys are the ones who made it in second. Yep. And you're comfortable with it. With the amendment.
Oh, thank you. We have to vote on the amendment. They want to insert one. And then insert. After emergency responder. Now we're sort of. Amendment. I'll make that a. For a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
This is just the amendment.
It's just.
Just leave that. All those in favor say aye. To close. Any abstention? Motion is carried. Now we have the main motion. For a vote on the main motion as amended. Those in favor say aye. 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 All in favor? Opposed? Opposed. Motion.
There you go. Here's your decision.
Feel free for you.
You want to have a recess?
That's a great idea.
5-minute recess.
Yes, thank you.
It's something to do.
For your pizza.
We're gonna have to get over it. I have to stay.
Plan.
You really?
Small one, but
Thanks for your time, guys.
Thank you.
I'm just saying, Phil's for.
I will stand up.
Oh, really?
So I don't think.
Yeah. And, you know, you kind of get the feel.
I mean, I think. Thought a lot about it. I came in here.
We muted.
We are not.
Reading back to the meeting back to order again. Or next item on the agenda is public communications. Communication. Staff,
Yeah, we did get a request to extend the filing period another.
not everybody.
So if you would, yeah, you could add it to the
Add it.
agenda.
So I'd
under
like to,
subdivisions.
back to motions. Second, that's relation. I didn't know, hold on, adding this. Question. Attention. Bishop. All right. Vote on the motion. Well, the next item is subdivisions. Subdivision 23. Yeah. Herron-Paulantonio. Subdivision. For extension. According to the mail.
That's not.
This is not, no, no.
I know.
So, do you have anything to say?
Just to note that the applicant has had a bit of a shift in their engineering.
I'll make a motion and approve. Request for a 90-day extension. According to the final subdivision. To September. Move the second. Any discussion on the motion? Motion. Extension. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any abstention? Motion carried. Next item is we have SIT 2303.
You want to do the Bishop Historic? That should
I
be
thought-
added to under subdivision.
Find that right away.
Yeah, I've got a motion and I'll just give you one piece of paper. This is the same thing,
It's the
90
same
days.
thing. You can't vote on
Exactly.
Oh, you can talk.
it. Now I'm confused.
No, no, you. Only have.
I understand.
That's. Wait. So we have another extension request. You want to approve a request. I'll make a motion to approve a request for plans for subdivision 22. Any discussion? Hold on, motion. Attention. Reset. And all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Next item is IT 23.
And I did, and the applicant.
Old business. No old business. New business, we have new applications.
Cannabis.
Cannabis.
Cannabis. Right away.
Oh, yeah. First day was effective.
What's it?
These both in the location of.
Soon we'll have two more amendments. And
Well, I'll have the text for you. Okay, yeah, okay, no, I understand, yeah.
and referrals. Well, that's where we want.
This is just, yeah, not the
No, that's-
application,
yeah,
it's just review of it in text form.
There's so many.
Yeah.
Hybrid. Right.
Yeah.
They have internet.
No, but it's gonna be it's a 13-hour.
That's right. Oh, you mean you don't want to do it at midnight?
Let me tell you what, it's stressful.
There's a code. Yeah. I've done that. So true.
So we're going to more great.
Oh, you can go right away. You can do it at breakfast. Referrals, we have Stonington referral.
Currently, they're adding the
Moving.
site. Yeah, moving them from the Mystic Ed Center here, but the site has historically been fire trained.
This is quite a ways away.
Mhm.
Any concerns? Okay. And then commission reports. Anybody on the commission? have any?
Just a question about the text amendment that's coming up for data centers.
Yes.
Is that gonna be a clean read or is that still gonna have the edits?
It will probably have edits. I mean, it will be, you know, things that are added are gonna be underlined in red and then
Okay.
strike throughs on things that are.
Okay.
Most of it's going to be addition.
Oh, we like.
Right, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. That's the 27th.
Or is that?
The only thing that I have is that we had a decision handed down yesterday on Brighton Square, really school.
Decision for what, legal?
Yours was, yeah, it was appealed, the decision
Oh,
to
sure.
approve that was appealed, and so the court has made their decision and
They
dismissed
backfired.
the appeal. Right, that's right.
I didn't know there was a deal.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
That's right.
It was driveway, it was some buffer issues. There were also the claims that you were delegating too much authority to staff. The judge found none of that the case.
That's small world, right?
Yeah.
Do you have anything else? Second.